So hey there, welcome back. This is Josh Cantwell. Welcome back to the Strategic Real Estate Coach podcast and interview series. I'm really excited to be with all of you today and bring you updated, awesome content and strategies for real estate investing, entrepreneurship, and leadership. And today I've got a good friend with me. This is Jason Lucchese from Global Fortune Solutions. Jason is been a long-term friend and contact of mine, actually a former student from years ago. He's been an affiliate of ours, and we've done a lot with kind of promoting each other's businesses. Jason's an active real estate investor and coach, and just an all-around awesome dude from Indianapolis, Indiana. And we're going to talk a little bit today about working with asset managers. We're going to talk a little bit about his strategies for getting inventory that's pre-MLS, that's pre-market, working with asset managers and working with agents that have pocket listings and this kind of inventory. And we'll also get Jason's take on building companies and entrepreneurship and leadership. So Jason, thanks so much for being here today, bud. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Josh? How's it going, buddy?
It's going great, man. I'm excited to be with you again, man. Thanks for having me on your show. And we're really excited to have you on, man. So let's jump in. Give everybody a little bit of flavor, a little bit of background about what you've, like your career in real estate and entrepreneurship, and then specifically kind of really focus more on what you're up to today. What's your kind of main strategy today that you're working in your own business? And I know you have a lot of students that you coach and mentor. So what's working for you guys in today's market? But give us some foundation about the past first. Go ahead.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me on your show. It was a pleasure having you on ours. To kind of go back, I got my taste of real estate back in 2008. I was kind of looking for something to do after the market kind of tanked. I was in the mortgage business before that. I was making really, really good money, and then it tanked. The bottom completely fell out. We were doing subprime loans for people that had bad credit, and it just completely disappeared on us. So all the money I was making was pretty much gone. I wasn't good with putting any of it into the bank. And I got into real estate in 2008. I had a child on the way, just got married, and I needed to make something happen because I don't have a college degree, and it was going to be extremely tough to get a position anywhere. So I got into it. Probably like most individuals that get into real estate, I bought a ton of different training programs, and I just didn't know where to start. So it really kind of kicked off for me when I got into the whole short sale thing. I started following folks like yourself, and back then also to our good friend Nathan. And you guys were essentially, really great mentors for me. And I really started kicking things off with short sales. That's what my start was. Mid 2008 is when things really started clicking for me, and I was able to start doing a ton of short sales. It was great because not a lot of people were doing them. The wholesalers that would get the leads, they would send them to me, and I would give them a referral because they didn't want to wait, and I was fine doing it. And then the market kind of shifted, right? Back in 11, 12, it shifted. Not as many short sales were being done. And I shifted my focus into trying to find off-market properties that I could wholesale, because that's what we're doing a lot of today. Is probably 70% of our strategy is doing wholesales. And we're trying to, do whatever we can to get off-market deals that are not on the MLS. If you look right now on HUDhomestore.com, especially in our market, there's not a ton of inventory. So it's really, you have to know exactly what you're doing to find great deals. And the things that we're doing are working directly with the mom and pop banks, because they have assets that they want to unload. And when I mean assets, I'm talking about single family properties. Sometimes they'll have multifamily, but most of the time it's going to be single family properties. We're still doing direct mail, but we're doing it in an effective way. We're not just sending out thousands upon thousands and hoping, one of those postcards will stick. We're sending them out in a very strategic way. And then we're, some of the team members that we have are doing door knocking and cold calling and all that good stuff too, because there's a lot of money in your lists. Most people send out once and they, want to get, that home run deal, and it's all in the follow-up. As you know, Josh, that was one of the things I was taught by you early on in my career is it's all about the follow-up. And that's how we were able to be so successful early on, is with short sales, is follow-up. And that's what it's really about in today's business too. So we're doing the wholesaling thing. We're getting the pre-MLS properties, and things are going really, really, really well, man.
Nice. Sounds like, Jason, you guys, what is already resonating with me and what you said is, you kind of looking for something to do, looking for something to make money on. Back in 2008, really started working with one strategy. Then when that strategy no longer worked, you pivoted into another strategy of wholesaling, but also really focus on one or two strategies to get a lot of deal flow. So one of the mistakes I see a lot of new investors make, and you probably hear this from new investors when you talk to us, I want to do apartments and multifamily and wholesaling, and I want to build a massive portfolio. I want to be worth $1 billion. And they just think they're going to do everything as opposed to really being good at one or two things. So why don't you just talk for a second about success that you've had, that you see other people have, your students have, just really narrow focused on just a couple of things, a couple strategies, and being awesome at that one or two things.
Yeah, man. It's like, and I know you're a diehard Indians fan, but that year we beat you guys in the World Series. The only reason why I bring this up is because the beginning.
Yes. I don't remember that. Never happened.
Never happened. The one thing that I really took away from that season, the beginning of the season, Joe Madden took his team aside and said, "Hey, I want us to become really, really great at the basics." And that's what the theme of that whole season was. And we needed a World Series, man. It was 1908 was the last one. We needed one. We were due. So that was the theme of that whole entire season, and that really resonated with me because I didn't really start seeing success until I started really focusing on one thing, and I started focusing on the basics with short sales. Right? It's getting the real estate agents. Going at that time, there wasn't really anything online. So I had to go physically down to the recorder's office to get the mortgage foreclosures. I had to find the title company that was cool with doing the A to B, B to C transactions. Those were essentially the basics at that point in time. And that's what I focused on. I still do that to this day. And I tell folks, like my book here, I've got 11 different strategies in there that we teach. But in the book, I even say clearly, this book isn't going to be you focus on all 11. I want you to pick 1, 2, or 3 out of this and really focus on it. Because that's when I really, truly see people see results in their business and success.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be more about doing one or two things really well. I mean, if you think about, I make the analogy of Apple Computer all the time. People think Apple's, largest market cap, $1 billion, almost $1 trillion market cap. But how did they really get started? They didn't start doing iCloud and iPhones and iPads and iMacs and all this different stuff.
Right.
But Apple, the way we know it today, not the Apple from 20 years ago, but the Apple we know today, made almost all of its money in iPhone sales.
Right.
iPhone sales. I was an owner of the iPhone 1 all the way back in whatever that was, 2008 or something.
Yep.
It's just gotten better and better and better. And even if you look at iPad sales and you look at iMacs and you look at iCloud and iTunes and all the things they do now, and they even have hardware and they own Beats, headphones.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They do.
But what did they do? The one thing that they did really well. So I try to convey that to my members and students as well is let's focus on one thing. For me, it's about getting all the money, the capital, because I like to own assets, apartment buildings, my fund. That's for me. But for a brand new investor, a lot of them need to focus on wholesaling and really focus on that one thing to make quick cash. Now, Jason, you have an interesting take on getting off-market deals, even really before anybody knows about them, especially foreclosures and HUD homes, and working with asset managers and working with people that kind of control this shadow inventory. So just talk about that strategy a little bit. I'm sure that's in your book, right?
It is. Yeah, it is. We go in detail in it on that strategy. And, I'll tell you what, man, it's dealing directly with like I said, the mom and pop banks. They're going to be at the state level and the regional level. It's not going to be the big banks. And a lot of people, the number one question I always receive is, well, why do they have this inventory and why isn't it out on the market? Well, most of the time, they are always strategically looking at the best way to liquidate those assets. And sometimes it does take a period of time for them to do that. They're weighing out every single option. And for some of these banks, they have several different properties that they have in their inventory, and they do want to unload them as quickly as possible, but they have to think about real estate commissions, attorney fees, closing costs. And one thing that a lot of people don't even realize, and Josh, you'll know this, these properties have probably been vacant for a while, so they probably are going to have to go in there and spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to get them up to list them with an agent, to be able to sell them at the retail market. Yeah, some of these places are like Bank of America. You go and look at an REO that's listed. We go and look sometimes, and the basements are flooded. We're like, well, I love those types of properties, but not the average buyer. An average retail buyer is going to be like, well, I want that fixed. That's going to cost them, thousands upon thousands of dollars, especially if there's mold in there. So they would rather work with us, Josh, because we're coming about 6 months in advance before all of the problems happen. And we come in, we're helping them solve a gigantic problem to get rid of those properties that they have, because that affects their lending power. Because banks aren't in the business of holding on to assets that don't make them any money. They're in the business of, hey, I want to loan you money. I want to make money off of the money that I'm lending to you. Just like you said, Josh, you've got a great capital. You've got a great PPM that you have. If that money's sitting, you're not making money. So it has to be constantly deployed. That's the same way the banks work. So the longer that those assets sit, the longer that it affects their ability to lend out on homes, to lend out on businesses, to get lines of credit to the individuals that are their customers at the bank. Same way with hedge funds. The description within their fund clearly states that they need to get rid of those assets that aren't making them money, or else the investors that have pulled part of that private placement memorandum could call their money due and pull out. So it's a very risky game for them to hold on to those properties and not sell them off. So for people like me and the people that we've trained, they go and approach these like beasts, and they're just tackling down properties left and right.
That's great. So Jason, help me understand, or help our audience understand, give us some examples of these banks. Are they credit unions? Are they local regional banks? What are the difference between like a Wells Fargo or a Chase Manhattan versus your local First Federal Credit Union or whatever? Help us understand who those people are that we might go after to get this pre-MLS inventory. And then within that bank, who do you talk to? How do you approach them? How do you just start the conversation?
Sure. So, and that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. The best way for me to describe who we're going after, especially from the bank level, it's normally going to be the smaller mom and pop banks that are lending maybe like within 3 counties of the state, all the way on up to regional banks that are maybe lending in 1, 2, or 3 states. The national banks, they aren't even going to talk to us about properties they have available unless you have a 9-figure proof of funds letter. That's why all the hedge funds are able to get in with those big players, because they have those pools of funds. But the level that we're working at is, the regional levels. We may work with somebody that's lending in 1, 2, or 3 states, and they're not a big nationally known brand. They're known in those specific markets, but that's about it. And the mom and pop banks, they're not going to do commercials and all that kind of stuff from a TV standpoint or Facebook marketing. They're known in the community. Like, hey, Joe's been with them for 60 years. That's the bank to go to. They're very, very local. And those are the banks that we're, quite honestly, those are the ones that we're working with and getting the type of inventory that we are.
Got it. So, and then those banks still have an asset manager or a contact person? Like, what are some of the different maybe titles that person might have? So if my audience wants to go approach one of these local banks, like in my market, the first one I think of is First Federal of Lakewood. So First Federal Lakewood probably has 30 branches. I know a couple of different loan officers and people that have worked there. They have their home office, which you would barely even know where it's at, in Lakewood, Ohio on Detroit Road, but they only lend in Northeast Ohio. They're not even in multi-states. They're pretty much in like maybe 6 or 7 counties, right out around Cleveland and just in the suburbs. So that's a perfect example. But what might the title of that person be? Are they an asset manager? Are they a foreclosure manager? Who's that person at maybe First Federal Lakewood that we would go talk to?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And, there's going to be asset manager titles. Not all of them, not all the banks have asset managers. They're all different titles. They could be a secondary marketing manager or risk prevention or loan workout officer. Most of the time at the banks, especially from the smaller end, I always recommend reaching out to somebody that's at a C-level role. And for folks that don't understand what that is, that's like a vice president role or higher, some sort of a managing director. And, typically the vice president is going to be able to help you and give you the insight on, if they're not the person, they're definitely going to be able to give you the right person to get in contact with. We've never had an issue when we get in contact with somebody. If that's not the right person and we're talking to a vice president at a bank, they're going to guide us down to the person that we need to talk to. It works for banks and credit unions because I know people have questions about that. It works at credit unions as well.
Got it. And what might be some of the bullet points or things to just open the conversation or say to this person to kind of get to the right person and also just have some credibility so you have an egg on your face when you're talking to this vice president to say, we're a local real estate, residential redevelopment company. We're looking for inventory. You probably have defaulted assets. Just tell us about that conversation. What are some bullet points or some hot buttons that we might talk about with that asset?
Yeah. No, absolutely. These are great questions, man. I'm loving it. I would not say anything about that you're wholesaling properties at all. That's going to be a gigantic turnoff, and probably nothing's going to result in a positive fashion from that because, first of all, they don't know what it is. And if they do know what it is, they're probably not going to want to work with you. So typically on these types of transactions, we do A to B, B to C transactions, and we could get more into that here in just a little bit. But from a transactional standpoint, the best things that you could say to them is, just like you were saying, Josh, normally how I start the conversation and how we are finding these people to have a warm introduction is we're simply finding them on LinkedIn. Believe it or not, a lot of these banks are on LinkedIn, and you could find all of the employees at that bank on LinkedIn. So it's very easy to find them. And you can use a site called BauerFinancial.com to find local banks in your area. And that's BAUER financial.com. So you could find all of the banks that you need. But huge things to say is we've got acquisition capital ready for deployment. So those are some key words. And basically what that's saying is, for people that don't know, is I have money, I want to buy properties from you. So, that's kind of the jargon that they want to hear. So if Josh and I were having the conversation, I'd say, hey, Josh, looks like we just connected on LinkedIn and I wanted to reach out to you. I'm a local real estate investor here in Indianapolis, And we have acquisition capital and power to deploy towards assets that you have at the bank that could be ready for deployment. And I just wanted to follow up with you, see if you guys potentially have any assets that are currently available that you're looking to liquidate.
Nice.
And for people out there that don't know what liquidate is, that just means I'm selling. So that's basically it. You need to use those types of words, especially with the banks and credit unions. I would highly encourage it as well when working with the hedge funds as well. It just sounds more at a sophistication and credibility standpoint. You know what you're talking about, and you're not a newbie. Even if you are completely new and you're using those types of words that they're not going to know. So that's what I would recommend and encourage from a conversation standpoint and starter.
Nice. And you guys remember, you don't have to be intimidated in connecting with these people on LinkedIn and communicating with them, because it's their job to liquidate these defaulted assets.
Exactly.
They want to learn and meet people like you, because it's their job to get the assets sold and get the bank out of that defaulted position. So it's not like you're showing up and asking somebody, to do something that they're like, I don't want to do that, or I'm not interested in doing that. They are super excited to actually connect with you, because you become another liquidation strategy for them to get out of these deals. And they might have bonuses, they might have commissions on how they're able to manage this. So Jason, I know you kind of have this whole thing locked down. I imagine these asset managers a lot of times are being paid some performance bonus. And I tell my people, look, compensation drives behavior. Yep. So if they're going to get paid to liquidate assets, why wouldn't they want to talk to us?
Absolutely, man. And I've had people that call these banks, and these folks are like, I've never had anybody reach out to me like this before. And they send them assets through an Excel spreadsheet to their email, and they're like, let us know which ones you're interested in. And normally these assets are being picked up. All of them. And sometimes it's like 5 or 10, but still that's 5 or 10 that you received absolutely for free. And normally they're giving them away for like 30, 40, 50 cents on the dollar of fair market value if you're buying like one at a time. So they're really great opportunities. If you're buying like package deals, you could get them for even cheaper. So don't be, like Josh was saying, don't be intimidated by these people, because it is their job. Think about it like this. If Josh is, a vice president at a bank, and he can unload 10 properties to me for a really good discount, and they don't have to wait 6 months and potentially have to put tens of thousands of dollars into these properties for repairs, he's going to get a better performance-based bonus. So that's another thing. Like, people are always asking about, why would they want to sell them to us? Why not just put them on the market? They're performance-based. And, if they could get rid of assets that they don't have to, sink thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in, that's going to help them out considerably.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So let's just, for those folks that may not know, could be a new investor, intermediate or advanced, maybe they're not a big wholesaler, just talk for a second about the concept of wholesaling through a back-to-back closing and the use of transactional money. Now, I'm teeing this up on purpose, Jason, because we're a transactional funder, right?
Right.
We want to fund deals for your members and ours that need transactional funding. Just talk for 30 seconds, a minute about what that is, logistically, how it works.
Sure. So in this scenario, since we've been talking about banks, I'll just go with this. So the bank in this position is going to be your A, your seller. The B in both scenarios is always going to be us, the investor. So if we strike a deal for $100,000 on an asset, and then we turn around and we're selling it same day for $150,000, we need to bridge the gap from a funding standpoint. So Josh's company would come in and they would fund the $100,000 that we need, and they would just, Josh has really great terms, and you would pay a small portion to Josh for giving you the money for a day, and then we would turn around with the B2C transaction, pay off Josh from that, so no money out of our pocket, credit's not pulled, and then whatever the net is after we pay Josh, we're still going to make, $40-some thousand off of a deal that we had no skin in the game on. And that's how we do them. A to B, B to C transaction, same way that we did the short sales. We go in at 10 o'clock, we close on A to B. We go into the next room at 10:15 and close the B to C, and we're done. It's a same day transaction. You're not even really lending me the money for the whole 24 hours. You're getting it back in like 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yes. I'm going to wire it in, send it back with maybe a point or two, and you keep the rest, right? So again, the great thing about that type of funding and that type of transaction is I don't care as a lender, as your funder, I don't care what your credit score is. I don't care where you live. I'm not going to ask you for your balance sheet. I'm not going to ask you, anything about your experience. All I care about is that when I put my funds in to fund the A to B, that the funds for the B to C transaction are also there, that are also ready to close, and that you're going to close those two deals essentially in the same day. And the title company is going to wire us back our money plus a small transactional funding fee, a point or two, and we're out of that deal. You're out of that deal. You've made some significant money by just connecting the dots. And we can help you out being a lending partner, a really exciting way. Not only if you're new to do a lot of deals with none of your own cash, none of your own credit, but even if you're intermediate or advanced and you're really doing a lot of maybe rehabbing or own a lot of rentals or apartment buildings, it's still a great way to hit singles and doubles and triples and sometimes even hit home runs wholesaling, and create cash flow, right? It's all about cash flow. To create cash flow, if you got a rehab that you're doing, you might make 50 grand on 60 grand, 100 grand, 20 grand, whatever, but it might be 4 to 7 months until you make that profit check. So using this wholesaling technique that Jason's talking about and leveraging asset managers is a great way to make cash flow while you're waiting, which is awesome. So anything else on that concept that we should talk about before we move on to the next
The one thing I'll say is when I got started with the short sales, I was freaked out with wondering where I would get the money to close on these deals. And if it weren't for transactional funding from folks like yourself, I probably would have not closed on those deals. And like you said, Josh, you could do some home runs on these A to B, B to C transactions. We've done some 6-figure, profit check deals off of A to B, B to C transactions, and we're in and out. So I highly encourage folks, if you need the money, don't be freaked out if you don't have it yourself, because I sure as heck didn't have it when I was first getting started. And folks like Josh are, helping, investors out there to bridge that gap. So that, I don't want to overcomplicate the bank, credit union, and hedge fund strategy. The LinkedIn aspect is huge. If you're like, oh man, well, I'm not sure about my profile, go look at my profile. Look at Josh's profile. If you want to grab some stuff off of mine, I'm giving you my permission right here, right now on this podcast. If you want to, go grab some stuff off of there and make your profile look professional, because especially when you're connecting with these folks, they will look at your profile. And if I could help out any way with giving you a credibility booster on your profile, let me know. I'll be more than happy to do that.
Fantastic. Awesome, Jason. So listen, I'm interested to know for you personally and for your organization, to kind of pivot the conversation a little bit about the future. I always like to know what you're kind of working towards, what your big goals are, what are some things that you're trying to accomplish with your real estate investing and your coaching and your mentoring over the next, 1 to 5 years and beyond. So what do you see personally? And the reason why I ask this is because I love to kind of wake people up. I like to wake people up to the opportunity that there's so much out there that oftentimes people are only restricted by their thinking. They're only restricted by thinking, well, I don't have a lot of money. I want to just go out and make my first $100,000, or I'm making $250 a year doing whatever you do. I don't know if I could ever do $500,000 or $1 million. The truth is, we will basically become whatever we think about all of the time. Some of the greatest philosophers and business developers and leaders and entrepreneurs, they all talk about the same concept. So I'm curious for you, Jason, just to kind of open up and waken some people up, open some people's eyes. What are some things that you're working on and some things you're trying to accomplish over the next 5 years or so?
No, that's a awesome question, man. It's always, you're always wanting to think about the future and all that kind of stuff. And for me, it's getting additional assets to hold within our income producing portfolio. We're going to start venturing into more apartment buildings and self-storage facilities and even paid parking lots. We're going to be looking at those types of asset classes to move into, not just this year, but continuing on. I would like to, on our goals is 1,500 doors for multifamily properties. That's not including self-storage facilities. And, with the market already starting to make a correction and has been making a correction, I think this is going to be a great time to get assets at, really great numbers and be able to, get those numbers at a phenomenal cap rate in the future, especially when the market does come back. It is still really, really great right now. Don't get me wrong, but the market is in a correction shift right now. So that's some of the things that we're really wanting to focus on. Wholesaling is still going to be a big avenue for us. We don't do a bunch of rehab, but if it does come up, that will be something that we will do. But from a future standpoint, raising capital, putting together multifamily deals, self-storage facilities, parking lots, and we're not going to do any new builds. My main thing is finding existing facilities and just adding additional value to those facilities, because there's always mismanaging going on. And if you could come in, fix that aspect of it, and work out the expenses to where it's additionally cash flowing at a better percentage and your cap rate's really good, that's what we want to focus on, and still come out and, work with folks like yourself, Josh. You guys always provide a ton of great value to students and stuff. I love working with students and really helping them see that there's a way out of the 9-to-5 grind, because one of the posts that I made on Facebook, I'll share it really quick. As kids, we're always dreaming, right? We're dreaming of the life that we want. Maybe we see a nice car or a nice house, or we see a professional athlete, and we think to ourselves, well, what if I can do that? Somewhere along the way, though, a lot of us, including myself, we get paid enough money to where we forget about those dreams, and they don't ever come back until we're in retirement mode. And a lot of people that retire in their mid-60s, late 60s, early 70s, and a lot of them feel like, man, time for me is gone. So one thing that I always encourage people to think about is never stop dreaming. Even if you're at a 9-to-5 job, they don't feel like they've paid you enough money to forget about those dreams that you want to accomplish. If you want to go see the world and travel, go do it. And there's still a great opportunity. There's always going to be a great opportunity. Real estate to me is one of the most stable ways of investing. Stock market's extremely risky. Bitcoin, I'm not going to talk about it on the podcast, but real estate time and time again has always created the most millionaires in any other sector of opportunities. It's never been, it's always been the most stable class for making money and really going after what you really want to go after in your life.
Yeah, fantastic, Jason. That's a great piece of advice. And we're gonna wrap up with that. I was gonna ask you what advice you would give your younger former self, but that was great. That was fantastic. Look, even when you look at people who've accomplished amazing things, the only way to kind of get up and stay motivated is to have these amazing, big, audacious goals that you're trying to achieve. And be able to tell yourself, look, these goals might be crazy, but it's Steve Jobs said at Apple, we hire people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world because they're the ones that actually do, right? Yep. Just like you got on your wall there. So you've got to be a little bit nuts, and you've got to avoid and ignore the people that just aren't at the level that you're thinking because they're comfortable in their mediocrity. So fantastic. Jason, so give us some idea if any of my audience would like to connect with you, would like to, maybe you brought your book, maybe acquire your book, buy your book, or learn more about this asset management strategy from you. What's the best way to connect with you? You got a website or an email or a phone number? What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, folks can reach out to us. Best way is I'll give our website. It's noflippingexcuses.com. You can check us out there. We've got tons of great free content on there. Podcasts that include Josh, those are up there. If you would like to get a copy of our book, I just had this one come out, Find the Flipping Deals. Give us a call. We'll give you a copy for free. It's 317-886-1400. Make sure that you mention that you heard us on Josh Cantwell's podcast, so that we'll get that out to you absolutely for free.
Fantastic. And one more resource for everybody. We talked about funding. If you're looking for funding, whether it be for your transactional deals using the strategies Jason talked about, or rehabs or apartments, we fund both debt and equity. Actually, as a matter of fact, we got a big deal closing in about 6 days. We funded $2.2 million of equity.
Nice.
A $30 million apartment building. That's going to close next week, which is exciting. But if you're in need of funding, check us out online at freelandlending.com. We look forward to being your funding partner and helping you with everything from your singles, your doubles, your triple, those types of wholesale deals, all the way up to your, grand slams and massive apartments. Check us out at freelandlending.com. Jason, any kind of final parting shots, words of advice for our folks?
Well, first and foremost, thanks, Josh, for having me on your amazing show. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to have me on there and doing this podcast. Not a lot of people know that, us podcasters put a lot of time and effort into putting these shows out to help out in a selfless manner. And so thank you so much for that. Parting words are, if you're doing New Year's resolutions or any type of resolutions, I would strongly encourage you, stick with it. And the only way to do it, I'm just going to leave people with this. The only way people get back into the gym successfully, not the people that go for a week and then give up, is you go for short periods of time. Because Josh, if I haven't been working out for 2-3 years and I go back to the gym, I'm going to be super, super sore, man. I am going to be so sore. My elbow joints are going to hurt. My back's going to hurt. My neck's going to hurt. My knees are going to hurt. The best way to get back into it, go for 15 minutes at a time. Same thing for business. Same exact principles apply for business. Go at it in 15-minute chunks, but give yourself balance. Read books, listen to podcasts like Josh's, go and maybe go for a walk if you don't have a gym membership, but don't stay at your desk for 8 hours a day. You're going to drive yourself nuts. So go at it in bite-sized chunks, create successful daily habits, and you're going to see a major difference after 30 days. And I highly encourage you guys to use Josh's company, Freeland, for funding. Highly, highly recommend it. So, Josh, thank you so much, man.
Awesome, Jason. Thanks a lot for being here. Guys, as always, think you enjoyed the interview and the podcast with Jason. Reach out, grab his book. Reach out and go grab all of his free material, noflippingexcuses.com. Leave us a 5-star rating in Stitcher, in iTunes, YouTube, wherever you find this. Leave us comments. If you have comments specifically for Jason, questions, my team will be watching and monitoring those platforms for comments. We'll reach out to Jason, feed them over to him. He'll get back to us. We'll reply to you. Just engage with us. Jason and I are here to put out this free content because we want to help other people, and that's part of giving back to our community. So really, really appreciate that. So Jason, thanks so much for being on again. And guys, check out Jason's stuff. We'll talk with all of you very, very soon. Take care.